When too much work bogs you down, Asana helps you handle it. That's because Asana is where humans and AI coordinate work together. AI makes it easy to hand off routine tasks, streamline workflows, and keep everyone focused on the work that matters most. That's how work gets handled. That's Asana. Visit us at asana.com. That's ASANA.com.
Hello and welcome back to the show. Hello, Ben. How the heck are you?
I'm doing great, Patrick. Thanks.
We're going to use an Instagram post that you put up, I don't know, it was probably a couple weeks ago now, as a springboard for our conversation, all about being weird. And so I'd love to start with having you just read what the post was. You gave us a list of things. I think the image said be weird, and then in the caption you just gave us like a bullet point list of things to do to be weird. So can you give us that list, and then we'll use that as a springboard.
Yeah. Okay. First one is go to bed at 8:30. Pass on the dessert everyone's raving about. Turn your phone off for hours. Give your journal more attention than your inbox. Snack on raw meat and raw veg. Put the raw in the wrong place there. Snack on meat and raw veggies.
Liver King.
This would be so weirder. This is not that weird. Don't know what the latest celebrity gossip is. Bring your own lunch. Meditate. Be the only one who hasn't seen it and don't care. Drink water at social events. Walk barefoot outside. Work out on vacation. Do breath work in your parked car before going inside. Get road trip snacks at grocery stores, not gas stations. Leave social events early to protect your sleep. Stretch on the sidelines of your kids' games. Choose silence and stillness over scrolling. That's the list.
Love it. Okay, so when I saw that list, the question that popped into my head, and I think it's what you're getting at. So this is I didn't have to work too hard for this question, but it's when did being healthy, choosing healthy become so weird? So that's a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. And then we're going to, I think, segue into talking about how to orient our lives around health and not around other things that I think a lot of people do orient their lives around. So the first thing I wanted to start with, and your post triggered a handful of fun thoughts for me. So hopefully we'll get to some of them today. But I just finished a book called The Pathless Path by Paul Millerd, Millerd. And the book is about primarily work. But with your list and having just read that, I started to think about some parallels that I kind of want to explore with you. So I want to start with Paul, a little bit from the book again, it's called The Pathless Path by Paul Millerd. Here's a little bit from it to tee us up. Most people, including myself, have a deep desire to work on things that matter to them and bring forth what is inside them. It is only when we cling to the logic of the default path that we fail to see the possibilities for making that happen. I'd been following a formula for life that was supposed to guarantee happiness. It didn't. Confusion kept me on a path that wasn't mine for more than 10 years. Along the way, I learned how to play the game of success and achievement, but never paused to find out what I really wanted. I found myself in rooms surrounded by business leaders and didn't quite fit in. I was in the wrong rooms asking the wrong questions about how to live. And so what Paul does in the book is he juxtaposes this idea of the default path and the pathless path. And by the default path, he means the series, and I love this quote, the series of decisions and accomplishments needed to be seen as a successful adult. So we're not going to talk specifically about kind of the work end of things, I don't think, but I did want to take that and twist it a little bit alongside your list and ask the question, what if health was your organizing principle instead of status? What if that was your definition of what it means to be a successful adult? And so I just want to start there and just kind of tee you up, talk to us a little bit about this list of being weird, and maybe let's get into what it would look like to organize our lives around those things versus the normal things versus the default things versus the more accepted things.
Well, it all kind of starts with that quote that I came across a while ago, which is, it's no measure of success to be well adapted to a profoundly sick society. Or it's some variation of that.
Yep.
And that was this kind of like aha of, wait a minute, what the quote normal, and I'm going to say normal because it is.
Yep.
70% of Americans have at least one chronic disease. A chronic disease is brought about by lifestyle, not through being exposed to a toxin or a part of your genetics, meaning it is behavioral. So the norm now, over 70% of, this is not even like the majority of 51%, we're edging up towards the 80-20,
yep.
which is like, it's more than normal. It is more than normal to have a chronic disease brought about by poor lifestyle choices. So if that's the case, being healthy is abnormal.
Yeah.
And when you hear those things that I listed, maybe some of them you go like, no, that's not that weird. But there's probably other ones that go like, that's kind of weird. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And I know that they are because, when I'm at my kids' sidelines at the game, I'm the only person there that's doing anything that looks like stretching or movement or anything. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do or the right way to spend your time, but it is not normal. Mm-hmm. Likewise, I don't think there's many people that are going on road trips that are stopping and finding out the closest supermarket to do their little road trip snacks as opposed to just getting the bag of combos or Doritos or whatever the snack du jour is. So it is, I think, I like that idea of, if we aren't intentional with this, it goes back to our awareness, intention, and action. If we don't have awareness of that there is this default path that has been kind of set up for us to walk down in terms of the normal status and wealth games that we are told to play, if we're not, I'm not saying be contrarian, I'm saying if we're not kind of popping up and looking around a little bit to try to figure out what are the things that we actually want out of our lives, we're going to go down the default path because that's just the way it's set up. We're going to go to, if it's the work environment that the author is talking about, we're going to go to school to get good grades, to get into a good college, to get a good job, to climb the corporate ladder, to hopefully be able to work the 40 to 60 hours a week, to have the 2 weeks vacation, to be able to have enough in our 401k, to be able to retire at 65, go to Florida and chill in retirement. Like that's the default path. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very much the case of what is the default path for our health these days. It's super convenience and super comfort. And I wouldn't trade that for anything else. Like I'm so glad that we have that because the alternative is like real hardship, like the hardship that they had 1,000 years ago. I wouldn't wish upon anybody. It was like violence and rape and murder and disease. And if there was a drought or a pandemic and there, half of the population got wiped out. So this is the better of the two. But just because it's the better of the two doesn't mean we need to kind of like wholesale accept every part of it. There are certain aspects that if we want to have, we're talking about right now, health, then we have to be intentional about it. It's not the default path. The default path is sedentarism, overconsumption, and disease. That is the default. That's what we're going to, if we don't proactively work hard to take the steps to fight against this, that's the river, that's the lazy, no pun intended, but the lazy river we're all floating down to the same destination. Mm-hmm. We literally have to jump off our inner tubes and fight to swim against that current to stop ourselves getting pulled down that path. And that's takes a lot of effort. It took this health path. By the way, we have like our 5 factors of health, right? Eat, sleep, train, think, and connect. There are 5 others. They're just not the behavioral ones. And there are things like your DNA, like your genetics. That matters a lot. There are things like your environment. That matters a lot. Things like your access to healthcare. That matters a lot. Those other ones were huge, huge issues a few hundred years ago. And the behavioral ones were not. This thing is completely flipped. If you are born in the United States, you basically don't have to worry about, the 5 that would determine your life and health before. Things like violence and car accidents, and that was, getting kicked in the head by the donkey you're trying to use to plow the field. Like, those things are all but gone, and now we have to focus on these other ones that they didn't have to.
Yep.
So this is the idea of like, we need to set up the framework. We need to intentionally pursue this. If we do not, while this is amazing, we're living in the most prosperous, healthy times ever, we're also up against it a little bit in just very, very different ways. Mm-hmm. Back then, it was like you got up when the sun came up and you went to bed when the sun went down, and you went out and you were in the field doing manual labor, working, connecting with the people in your town and interacting and eating nothing but real food because the only thing available. Those factors were good. The other ones were terrible.
Yeah, in many ways, we've been given this incredible opportunity that collectively we're squandering, right? And you think about if you did go back and grab somebody from 100 years and say, look at the world now, and then look at what we've done with it, they would slap us. They would slap us for having wasted.
Think about even like the Romans and the ancient Greeks, and that's not even that long ago, right? But they had no electricity, very little sanitation. They had very little in terms of medical intervention. If polio came, sorry, guess what? You got polio. You're now have to. It's just, we have, as you said, now we have such this amazing gift. If you plopped one of those people here, they would go, oh my God, this is amazing. And all you have to do is get some exercise and not eat the crap and go to bed on time and talk to your friends and get outside.
And you guys aren't doing that?
Right.
Yeah. I want to bring that one of the questions back up that I said earlier, because I want to spend a little bit of time on it, which is when I saw your list, and obviously you and I've had thousands of these conversations, so I knew where you were coming from. But one of the things I thought about as I was reading through the list that when I first saw it was, this is the way that Ben prioritizes health. It's the way, because I know you, it's the way you've built your life, which is to say your day, around choosing healthy options versus either unhealthy options or options that are sort of default, that are neither healthy nor unhealthy. And so I just want to bubble back that question back to you. Is what if health was your organizing principle instead of status? And by status, I mean what you've said a bit already, which is the priority is my job and improving that job and improving my paycheck and improving my standing in the tribe as it relates to money or power or prestige, whatever it might be. But instead, which I do think is the default, unless we're able to pull ourselves out of it, instead say replace that need, the attachment to those things, and let's say, what would it look like to build your life to make your decisions around what will make me healthier? Because I do think that is ultimately what you're saying is the weird part.
Yeah, I can kind of hear the grumblings, which is like, dude, you're giving up. What are you doing? It's kind of like the Brian Johnson thing, the live to never die type person. They'd be like, but for what? You're having no fun. I don't feel that at all with this, and it's kind of the exact opposite. To me, what is no fun is having disease. Yep. It's not hyperbole. That's not an exaggeration. These are the measures, and it's the ones that when I created the list, it's the ones that I know people kind of go what? Like you're leaving? We're just the party hasn't even started yet. It's 8:30. What do you mean you're leaving? So yeah, I'm gonna go. It's all of those things. It's the stuff that It's the actions. It's the actual thing. Like it's until you put these things into action. And I didn't put go to the gym 6 days a week, right? Because that's like the obvious. It's the things that are going to kind of like give kind of like the little bit of the eye roll, like, oh, that he's doing that. But it's the reason for it is if we're going to organize our lives around this health instead of the status, that you kind of got to go like, but for what? Mm-hmm. And the reason is that I want to be able to live my life on my terms. And I think that's what people that are listening to our show want to do. Yep. And we've said forever, it's like our highest values are peace of mind and freedom. The surefire way to knock me out of that is make me sick or injured. Like if I am sick, meaning screaming headache, upset stomach, whatever it might be, strep throat, like whenever I get those things, it's really hard for me to have peace of mind. It's even harder for me to have freedom to be able to do what I want to do. It's one of the reasons I train the way I do now is I don't want to get hurt. Mm-hmm. If I am in a sling, if I am on crutches, if I hurt my back, I am no longer able to do the things that I find immense joy, purpose, and passion from, which is being with the people I care about, working on meaningful projects. Mm-hmm. That's what I want to be able to do. And I want to do it enthusiastically and excitedly. And if I am physically incapable or in pain, that's really, it's a challenge that I feel is voluntary that I don't need to navigate. And that's why I'm going to choose these small other inconveniences, what other people might call, or certainly weird actions to help prevent against that. I'm willing to take a little bit of this inconvenience now, this little bit of pain now to avoid so much of it in the future.
We're brought to you by Rag & Bone, the premium denim brand that's been perfecting the art of jeans for 2 decades. Head to rag-bone.com and use the code EXCELLENCE for 20% off your entire order. I wore some new Rag & Bone gear recently, jeans and a Henley shirt to dinner and the theater last week because I'm fancy and I got more compliments on the outfit that I have in months. Granted, almost all of them were from my wife, but we're going to take it where we can. Here's what I noticed. These aren't your average blue jeans. The Infused collection goes through an 8-step over-dye process that creates these rich, layered tones that look polished, but still effortless. The fit is what really sets them apart, though. They move with you, they hold their shape, and you can tell from the moment you put them on that they're built to last for years, not just seasons. Whether you need slim and straight for work or relaxed for weekends, they've got multiple fits that work for any occasion. This is premium craftsmanship that only gets better with wear, the kind of investment piece that becomes your go-to because it delivers on both style and substance. Get 20% off your entire order at rag-bone.com with the code EXCELLENCE. That's rag-bone.com with promo code EXCELLENCE. We're brought to you by our friends at Function Health, the comprehensive health platform that gives you access to over 100 biomarkers most people never get to see. Visit functionhealth.com/excellence. Use the code EXCELLENCE100 for a $100 credit toward your membership. I just had my yearly physical, and when I showed my doctor my Function Health results, he was genuinely impressed with the depth of data that I had access to. That is, in fact, why we chose Function, because it's the only platform that gives us data most people never get and the insights to start doing something about it. Inside Function, you get access to over 100 biomarkers from hormones to toxins to markers of heart health, inflammation, and stress. It's a near 360-degree view to better see what's going on in your body, which is why top health leaders, Dr. Mark Hyman, Dr. Huberman, and Dr. Jeremy London are all behind Function Health. Function helps you track biomarkers that reveal what's really driving changes in your body so you can make data-informed decisions instead of just guessing. Visit functionhealth.com/excellence or use the code EXCELLENCE100 at sign up to get your $100 credit and start taking ownership of your health. I want to go back a little bit to the default path and introduce another idea that I thought about when I read your list. And it's from, I've mentioned him before, Anthony DeMello. He wrote a book called Awareness. He's wrote a handful of books, but Awareness, I think, is his biggest and most popular. And I think he wrote it, or it came out in the 70s or 80s. I think he passed away in the 80s. And I just want to give a little bit from Awareness. Here's a quote. A nice definition of an awakened person: a person who no longer marches to the drums of society, a person who dances to the tune of the music that springs up from within. And I I bring that up to go back a little bit to the default path and being weird and choosing to be weird, and talk to us a little bit about even removing it from the idea of health. Just the idea of being weird has forever been thought of as a bad thing, has been thought of as something to avoid. And it's a term used in derision. You're the weird kid. And so the implicit lesson in that is don't be weird. Be like everybody else. Don't get attention for the things that make you weird. Get attention for the things that are societally approved of. And so all that to say, why is being weird so hard? Why is choosing weird? Why is embracing weird? Why is accepting that we are all in fact weird so difficult?
Well, we have ingrained into us this idea of don't rock the boat.
Yeah.
Of blending in, of being a part of the tribe. It's really important for us from a biological evolutionary perspective to be accepted. So we don't want to be seen as weird. What's strange is like that just doesn't serve us now. The weird ones are it's kind of the old Apple campaign.
Actually, as soon as you said that, I just remember that. Yep.
Yeah, it is about the weird ones. It is about
think different, I think was their campaign.
The ones that are willing to stand out, rock the boat, challenge the status quo. They're the ones that change the world. So while it's one of those things that again we have to just kind of like be aware of. I'm going to read that book by Anthony DeMello.
DeMello, yep. DEMELLO.
Awareness, yeah. I think I just love the title.
Yeah.
But it's okay. It's a little bit, there's that Nietzsche quote. I think Nietzsche is a pretty interesting philosopher. His quote is, and those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music.
What a nice match with the quote I said. A person who dances to the tune of the music that springs.
That's what made me think of it.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah. And it's very much that. It's like, I get it. Like if you don't understand the value that I put on health, these behaviors look ridiculous.
Yep.
They don't look normal. They're not normal. They're perfectly normal. It's perfectly normal for me to dance when I can hear the music. And I feel like I can hear the music. And it's not saying like it's better. It's my values. It's what I feel is important in my life. And this conversation is not to persuade people to start to dance. Maybe it's a little bit like, can you listen a little closer to hear the music? Mm-hmm. Because I think it's, if we are looking for that level of awareness, like the music is playing, right? We want to be able to go like, wait a minute, oh yeah, there it is. That's it. Oh yeah. Now I can see why but without that awareness, you're just going to ride the river. Mm-hmm. And that's always, it's not being contrarian. It's more about not accepting. I think we should challenge almost everything, right? Made to pop up a little bit. Like we were brought up with these certain set of values that you didn't necessarily choose. We were brought up in a certain time frame by a certain set of parents that lived in a certain country with a certain set of beliefs that they were brought up in. And a lot of this is just default programming. And the idea is, can you pop out of the matrix a little bit and go, wait a minute, what is causing this belief system? What is causing me to want to chase these things? In this case, it's this, whether it's the status and the wealth games versus the health games, which one is actually going to lead to more true fulfillment, happiness, peace of mind, opportunity later on when you're on your deathbed, which is always, I think, a really good, healthy experiment exercise to gain perspective on the present moment. What are the things that you're going to wish? What may say another way? What is your 80-year-old self going to thank you for doing now? My contention is it's some of these things that most of the world looks at as weird.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of an episode or a conversation we had about I think it was the 5 regrets of the dying. And the number one regret was I wished I had the courage to live a life truer to myself. And I think that's recognizing that with that deathbed exercise, recognizing what those on their deathbed have actually said, which is that their common regret is in many ways a lack of courage to do the things that they thought they should do or do the things they want to do versus the things that they thought they should do. I just think that's, we've talked about it before, but I think it's always good to remind ourselves that there is wisdom we can pull from here, that the people who are ahead of us, who have gone before us, have turned around and said, hey, don't make these mistakes.
Yeah. Can you give me that quote? I'm going to put this up like on my wall. So I think it's, what a good, right? They've been there before. Let's learn. I wish I had the courage to live a life
true to myself.
Yeah.
They have a certain clarity that we don't have. And so I think it's important. And it's not even just the deathbed, but anybody who's ahead of us is going to have a certain degree of clarity that we don't have yet because we're still in the middle of it. And so if we can find it, if we can stumble upon some wisdom, some clarity, and we can borrow that, I do think it's important that we make sure we're chasing the right thing for the right reasons. And if somebody's saying, hey, I did that, and here are the reasons why it wasn't the right thing or the right way, for us not to slow down and say, okay, let me make sure that I am in fact chasing it for the right reasons is stupid is the word that keeps coming.
Yeah.
What's interesting, back to the question that I had posed sort of at the beginning of this conversation, which is what does it look like to really build a life where our individual health is at the center versus work? And that's very much like, again, from the pathless path, it wasn't necessarily health, but it was building a holistic life where you don't make work the center of it. And then everything's sort of like a gravitational, linked to that work, right? Like everything happens because of the work. I don't want work to be the center of my life. I want work to, yes, be fulfilling. Yes, be satisfying. Yes, be creatively interesting. Yes, work with cool people like you. But if I get to 90 and I look back and I think I spent a lot of time building an identity around work, building my days around when I worked versus when I didn't work, filled in the gaps between work with the other stuff, then I probably will regret that. And yet I can sit here today and say, as much as I haven't fallen victim to that default path of, hey, go get a job and then get promoted and then get a title bump and et cetera, I have still built an identity around my work in a way that's probably at odds with building an identity around my health. And I think that's kind of where I was hoping we would get to today. Because I think one, because it's on my mind, but two, I think that's common to build a life around work. And the sacrifice of that is health.
Especially if you say it as that, if it's the sacrifice of it, right?
Yes.
Because I actually don't see that. I don't experience that. I don't think it is I don't think it's I think seesaw.
Agreed.
It's at odds.
But I think for folks who haven't
Correct.
done the work, I think that is the compromise. I'm paying attention to work, and my health I'll take care of later.
It's a simple thing of, to really ground this. It's people, I don't have time for.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So I would love to have a home cooked meal every day. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would. Yeah. So where are you spending your money? Where are you spending your time?
Yep.
So it's for that reason. It's what we're saying is, what are your top priorities? Because there's no such thing as you don't have time. Mm-hmm. Like everybody has the same amount of time. Everybody does. It's just a matter of what you choose to prioritize. Some people prioritize working 3 minimum wage jobs. Not wrong, right? Mm-hmm. You might need to do that to feed your family. That's what you're prioritizing. Other people prioritize, living in a VW van from 1973, following, music festivals around. Everyone has the same amount of time. Other people prioritize, 18-hour work days at Goldman Sachs and trying to be, retired by the age of 45. Our contention with this conversation is, should health be a high priority when society says it's not? And I don't want to say when it's not. I think everyone values it, but they don't put the actual practices into place. And when the practices are put into place, it's kind of strange.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, whoa, that's not what we're all doing. I get it.
Yep.
And we all are on the wrong path. So if we were to prioritize health, not the default path, but take the pathless path of health, I do think it's worthy. I think it's important. If we're talking about it for the purposes of health and not like, I'm going to go into the gym for 6 hours to try to get down to 6.5% body fat.
Yep.
That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is, no, we're going to actually just do the simple but maybe contradictory things to what everyone else is doing, to take the tiny little steps multiplicatively across like a whole bunch of different little actions to intertwine this into our lives. What we're saying is, it's not just about processed food and going to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things, and there's going to be a lot of things that kind of pop up that come at odds to the normal lifestyle that we've all just sort of accepted.
We're brought to you by Momentous, the supplement company that's setting the gold standard for purity and performance in a space that quite frankly needs it. Head to livemomentous.com and use the code excellence for up to 35% off your first order. When we talk about health being a choice, that choice starts with knowing what you're actually putting in your body. That's where Momentous separates itself. Their new creatine lemon delivers the purest creatine on the planet, CreaPure, in refreshing lemonade style travel packs. Creatine isn't just for muscles, it's essential daily fuel for your brain, your body, and your long-term performance. Every batch is NSF certified for sport, which means it's independently tested for purity, safety, and label accuracy. This is what they call the Momentous standard: uncompromising science, meticulous sourcing, and real transparency. They're trusted by all 32 NFL teams, Olympic athletes, and elite military operators, because when performance matters, quality cannot be compromised. If you've been curious about creatine or dropped off taking it, this is your moment to get back on track with a formula you'll actually enjoy. Visit livemomentous.com. Use the code excellence for up to 35% off your first order of their creatine lemon. This episode is brought to you by Our Place, the company revolutionizing how health-conscious home cooks think about their cookware. Visit FromOurPlace.com/excellence and use the code excellence to get 10% off your game-changing, toxin-free cookware. When we talk about the 5 factors of health, nutrition is, of course, key. But what about the pots and pans you are cooking that nutrition in? Have you thought about it? A recent study found that 80% of traditional non-stick pans contain Teflon, which can leach harmful chemicals into your food. Our Place's 4-piece cookware set is the perfect solution. It's completely toxin-free while still offering incredible non-stick performance. This set includes 2 always pans and 2 perfect pots that replace a whole cabinet of traditional cookware, saving you both space and time and getting yourself a little bit of peace of mind. Also, you'll save $150 by buying the set, and every piece matches beautifully in Our Place signature colors. Take control of your kitchen's health impact by visiting FromOurPlace.com/excellence. Use the code excellence for 10% off of your order. Last thing I think I wanted to talk to you about, back to Anthony DeMello and awareness. The book is really built around this, or his argument is really built around this idea that we are all attached, both unnecessarily and unhelpfully. We are attached to the approval of others. And so when I think about being weird, back to your original list, when I think about building a life around health and not status games, I think about, well, why do the status games exist? Why does the default path exist as it does? And I believe a lot of it can be reverse engineered to all of our individual needs or desires or habits or default mode of seeking the implicit approval of other people. And he says this about what an attachment is. He says an attachment is a belief that without something, you are not going to be happy. Once you get convinced of that and it gets into our subconscious, it gets stamped into the roots of our being and you are finished. He says, can you imagine the relief when you don't have to impress anybody anymore? Oh, what a relief. Happiness at last. It's one of the things that I continue to think about, having read that book a few months ago. But I bring that up Because I do think that there's a degree in pursuing the weird, AKA pursuing health. We have to remove from our set of desires the often subconscious need that we have to get the approval of others, to get the approval of a specific individual, or this sort of nameless, faceless individual that we tend to try to make approve us. And so do you think, I mean, you and I are in a weird spot. We've been having this conversation for so long. We've been in the communities that we've been for, 20 plus years. It's not weird for us, for you and I, and for people who are listening to this and the people in the gyms that we go to see that list that you originally said, that you originally put out there, that you read, and really see any of that as being like, oh, that's so abnormal. Because I do some of that, if not all of it. But there are people out there for whom they don't do anything on that list. And to do anything on that list would risk losing the approval of somebody or everybody in their lives. And so as we kind of wrap this conversation up about being weird, about pursuing health, or about building a life that prioritizes health and not anything else, how do you, what's your advice? What could maybe become our collective advice to get past, and it's back to the courage, but to get past the moment or moments when you have to stand up and say, I'm going home, or can I have a water instead of a beer? Or I'm going to sit over here in the corner and stretch instead of gossip, whatever it might be, advice that we can maybe give some folks to push them beyond the seeking of approval and replace that with the seeking of health.
I think so. It's that bidirectional change sequence, which is identity, beliefs, and actions. And you can go one way or the other. You can start with identity. If you start with identity, it's going to be stronger.
Yep.
I'm not the type of person who stays up to midnight at parties drinking. That's not who I am. And because of that, I believe that going to sleep and being sober and in control and healthy is really an important part of the way I want to navigate my life. So because of that, I don't do those. The actions just follow. Or you just go the other way. It's like, maybe I am a party animal and I am unhealthy and I am this, but I'm just going to start to do those things. I'm just going to start to leave the party. That's hard. But it works, because after you do that 3, 4, 5, a dozen times, you do that for 3 years in a row, guess what? That is who you are.
Yep.
And then so it's one of those things of you can either start with your identity, or you can start just by doing the actual actions. I like doing the work of figuring out what's important to me. That's what I always start with, because a form of one of my fears is working really hard for something that ultimately doesn't matter. That's what I really don't want to do, is end up on my deathbed, ask that question and be like, God, I wish I just hadn't spent all that time, effort, energy on X, Y, or Z. So I'm trying to do the work now to try to figure out where am I going to want to do that? Where do I want to invest that time in? And I have the framework that we've been talking about forever on this is what is your passion? What is your mission? What are your values? Where do you see yourself in, what is your 80-year-old self going to thank you for now? And what's your 8-year-old self going to look up to you for doing now? So I always trying to get levels of perspective, because I don't trust my mind. My mind is going to lie to me and say, you want that birthday cake. You want to stay up and watch that next show on Netflix. Yep. You want to scroll on Instagram. Yep. You want to, but I realize that there's a self one and a self two. And self one is the loud one. It's the one that if we're not paying attention, it's always going to rule the decisions of the now. Our lives are just the accumulation of the decisions we make in the present moment. That's what our lives end up becoming. I'm very much a person that believes in ownership and autonomy, not that we are just leaves being blown in the wind and victims of our circumstance. So it's the accumulation in sum of our decisions. If we're making those decisions based off of the best possible pleasure that I can have in this given moment, I really think I'm going to end up in a place that I regret a lot. Mm-hmm. It's basically the way I lived my early 20s, honestly, because that's what I did. Mm-hmm. It's like, what do I want now? Cool. Like, let's do the next beer. Let's do the next shot. Let's go, buy the whatever, the crap, and spend our times in really unmeaningful, productive ways and wake up with a lot of regret the next morning. And through that trial and error and trying to zoom out and go, well, what does a really meaningful life look like? I'm willing to bet that I'm not going to go, well, I wish I had been more unhealthy. Mm-hmm. I wish I had just not taken as good care of my mind and my body. I just have a hard time. It's kind of like Jeff Bezos says, it's like, I'm going to center my business around the things that I think are going to be the same in 50 years, not the things that are going to be different. Mm. And he says, I have a really hard time picturing a world where customers are going to want things more expensive and slower. Yep. Like, I just think that if we put a lot of our eggs in that same basket, Morgan Housel's same as ever. I just think that like forever people have wanted cheaper and faster delivery. Mm-hmm. So let's just build a business. He's built one of the biggest businesses that ever existed based off of those two principles. Yep. I just really find it very hard to me saying to myself, like, I wish I was a little less healthy.
Yeah. I wish I had less capacity and less freedom.
Yeah. Yep. That's right. Yep. Now, I'm sure I'm not going to get a lot of the other stuff right. Like, but that's when I feel same thing. I wish I had like patience with my kids and my wife. Like, I'm willing to lose so many battles along the way. Like, I'm willing to lose every single battle along the way to make sure that like we just have like they just know how much I love and care about them. Yeah. Because I have a hard time picturing a future where that isn't the thing I'm going to be like happy. Like this argument, this thing that we're trying to win, quote, win, right? Kids' screen time or chores, or they did something that we're not proud of, or the thing that I got triggered by my kids or my, like, I'm willing to just kind of go like, yeah, you know what? Like do they know how much I love them? Mm-hmm. I just think that's going to be the thing. And there's a few key things like that, right? There's just a very few key things that I think fit into that framework that I have a really hard time envisioning that I'm not going to be excited that I invested into those. Mm-hmm. Health being, this is why the 5 factors of health and connection and love is in there. Yep. That's why I want to kind of double down, triple down, because I have a hard time envisioning something different. Yeah.
And to wrap up that quote that you gave us at the top, which we've talked about before, but it's from Jiddu Krishnamurti, probably not pronouncing that right, but it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And as you're running through that list, and I love that idea of like, I doubt very much that I'll ever want to have less capacity or that I'll be happy that I have less freedom. But we look at the world as it currently does, and to the point of the quote, which is like well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. If we grant the premise that the default path leads most people to a degree of sickness that we do not want, that we do not ascribe to as necessary or inevitable, then we have to be willing to say, I'm going to do things that are different than what everybody else is doing. I'm going to be weird in a way that makes other people look at me a little bit funny, because I recognize that if I don't want to go to the same place they're going, I have to take different steps. I have to take a different path. I have to take a different route. I have to choose different actions. I have to have a different identity. And when you actually do that, when you do all that work and you recognize, I do not want to go to where you're going, you then have the responsibility and you need to have the agency to say, in what ways am I going to be weird? And in what ways am I going to embrace that weirdness? Because I know, even if you don't, that weirdness is getting me to a good place when it's not going to get you there.
Yeah, that quote, it's really hit home for me in a really big way, because if you break it down, like working backwards, like you just have to accept, like, okay, a profoundly sick society. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is yes. Like 70% of Americans have a chronic disease.
Yep.
That means cancer, diabetes, heart disease, stroke, dementia, Alzheimer's. Those are behavioral. So a profoundly sick society, 70% of us have one of those things. Well-adjusted. That means you're doing what everyone else is doing.
Yep.
Like, it's no measure of health. We are not healthy if we're doing everything that everyone else is doing. So for those reasons, we need to not be well-adjusted.
Yes.
We need to be weird.
We need to rebel.
We need to rebel. So be the healthy. I think that book, it comes from the Healthy Deviant.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
be that.
Yep.
Or at least an essay called that, or something
I
like
think,
that.
yeah, I don't remember, but I think that is a book.
Yeah.
But I don't remember who wrote it. I don't know if it was Jiddu Krishnamurti or if that was just a quote from it. But either way, I think that's a good place to wrap up. Any last words on this idea of being weird?
It goes back to do what sets your heart on fire, right? Not what someone else is saying or the default path that you've accepted or inherited. But popping up a little bit and going, where is the pathless path that I want to, even if it's hacking away with a machete, carve on my own.
Thank you very much for tuning into the show. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you're listening or watching so you do not miss another episode. For more frameworks and daily practices, visit chasingexcellence.email. And don't forget to tap the link in the show notes for today's full listener guide, where we break down the key ideas and provide actionable steps to help you put them into practice. Until next time, keep building health, finding freedom, and living with your heart on fire.
When too much work bogs you down, Asana helps you handle it. AI makes it easy to hand off routine tasks and stay focused on important work. That's how work gets handled. Visit us at asana.com.
For a limited time at McDonald's, get a Big Mac extra value meal for $8. That means 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, and medium fries, and a drink. We may need to change that jingle.
Prices and participation may vary.